Okay, so we'll call this meeting of the City Schools of Decatur Board of Education to order at 6:34. All members are present here by Zoom. And let's see, I think the first thing that we need to do is see if there's any, I guess our first thing is to have a moment of silence, isn't it? So let's have a moment of silence. Okay, and now if the members will please say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic
for which
it
it
stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Now, do we have any revisions?
On
I'm saying, it's just, do we have any revisions to the agenda?
I don't have any.
Okay. And the minutes have been presented from the regular meeting on July 14th, 2020. Do we have any revisions to those minutes? Okay, so they'll be entered as presented. I think those were the only minutes that we need to approve. Is that correct? Did I miss any?
That's correct, just the one.
Okay. Okay, with that, that'll take us to public comment. Do we have, before we actually say who's signed up, could you please provide instructions for those who haven't yet signed up but wish to speak?
Yes, so if you have not yet signed up, if you go to the board agenda where you found the link for this meeting, there's a link. If you click on the public comment item, there's a link to sign up right there. And we currently, some people signed up twice, I think, by mistake. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 speakers.
Okay, so in our general rule is 3 minutes per speaker. So each person will have 3 minutes to speak. And I'll just provide the general reminder that the public comment is a time to speak to the board as a board about issues of general interest or importance to the district as a whole. It's not a time to raise concerns that apply to specific staff or specific students. Those issues are better addressed through other channels, but not at a public meeting. If there's any issue during the public comment where we think that a line might be being crossed, I'll ask you to please bear with us, and I'll ask you to pause while we can actually give some thought as to whether we need to limit the comments or not. But please just bear with us, and you know, we'll figure out what's inbound and what's not, and then we'll sort it out. But that's the general procedure. And with that, I think, David, you've got the list. If you could call up our first speaker.
I do. So our first speaker is Mary Helen O'Connor. So Mary, I had found you in the list. Hold on a second. Let me go back and find you. Okay, there you are. And so Mary, I'm going to click. Go ahead.
I have one other thing. I forgot that it's always nice for the board to know who's talking with us. And so if you'd please, at the beginning of your comment, say not only your name, but your connection to the school, you know, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a community member, you know, whatever it is, if you'd please let us know so that we can understand how to put you in context.
All right. So Mary Helen, I'm going to click a button that says allow to talk, and then you'll be able to take over with your comments. All right. If you want to unmute yourself.
I just tried. Is it working?
Yep, there you go. Perfect. Yes, it is.
I've been doing this so long, but I don't, I've never been on this end with I have no buttons. Hi, I'm Mary Helen O'Connor. I'm a parent of 2 City Schools of Decatur children. My son, Connor Ramming, who will speak later, is a football player. And I just want to communicate to the board and to Dr. Duday the very sad time that we're going through, having to deal with what seems to feel like a very unparticipatory decision to suspend football and band and the other clubs. There are 30 seniors on the football program whose future in higher education is in jeopardy. The football team has been practicing since June. They've had 7 COVID tests, none have been positive. There's been extraordinary effort on the part of the coaches to be careful. If you see my screen, I don't even know if it's on. I live across the street from the football field. I've supervised and witnessed every single football practice since they started because I work on my computer sitting on my porch. And I wish that someone had just asked us. And I think that as a small district, we can come up with creative solutions to these problems. The mental health toll that this is going to take on our children is extensive. I do work with a courtesy appointment in the GSU, Georgia State University School of Public Health. I serve on the Clarkston COVID Community Task Force. I spend my Saturdays handing out hand sanitizer and masks to our most vulnerable community members. But I don't feel like this was a participatory decision. And I'm very sad for the kids who I wish we could have come up with a better option for them. COVID hit the day, we shut down the day that my son returned from his first recruiting trip to Boston. And I would like to defer, I can't defer my time, I'm sure I only have a minute left, but I hope that you'll listen with the compassionate heart to the students that are gonna speak. And I don't speak just on behalf of the football team, but I sat here listening to the band practice from, I think, 8 in the morning until like 9 at night. Everybody has taken extensive precautions to protect our children. And I really believe that we could come up with something more creative and better as a solution for them, at least to have some sort of outlet for the really difficult time that we're all going through. That's all I have to say. I know that you're all very thoughtful and compassionate people, and I appreciate the time to be able to share how we're all feeling.
All right, thank you, Mary Helen. All right, our next speaker is Gerard Boudreau. Gerard, I'm looking for you right now.
Did you make any progress with the camera so that we could see?
No, I
faces?
was not able to. I'm only able to bring them in for talking.
Okay.
But we can research that for the next meeting. I apologize. Okay, Gerard, you should be able to unmute now.
All right. Hi, I'm Jerry Boudreau. I'm a senior at DHS and a football player. I'm here to speak about the decision to suspend the football season. I first want to stress that in the decision to suspend football, this is a decision where Decatur is the outlier. There's a governing body for high school sports in the state, the Georgia High School Association, or GHSA. The GHSA consulted with medical experts and decided to allow football to continue with restrictions, and the vast majority of schools in Georgia are following GHSA's decision. I believe Decatur should do the same. The suspension of this season will have a lot of negative consequences. The missed games and lack of preparedness from canceled practices will severely diminish the scholarship prospects of my teammates who are seeking a football scholarship to fund a college education. The decision to suspend football is an important and impactful decision, but I don't feel that it was made in this way. The School Board Policy Manual, Section 2, Policy 2.1 states, the superintendent shall not fail to create and maintain an organizational culture that reasonably includes people in decisions that affect them. I don't feel that this procedure has been followed. Those who are most affected by this decision, the players and our coaches, were left out of the decision-making process pretty much entirely. Additionally, the School Board Policy Manual also says that the superintendent shall not fail to create and maintain an organizational culture that encourages and practices open, honest, and timely communication in all written and interpersonal interaction. Our team was under the impression throughout the summer that Decatur would be following GHSA's decision on the football season. It was not at all communicated to us that a suspension of football is being considered. Additionally, the manner in which we were given the news of the suspension was, in my opinion, simply unacceptable. After being left out of the decision-making process, our coaches were pretty much blindsided by the news of football being suspended just a few hours before our first full practice. The players were told the news through an email blast just before that first practice. This led to a lot of guys on our team showing up at the field with their equipment, fully expecting to practice. I think this communication shows a lack of understanding for how impactful this decision was, especially when a lot of players and coaches have poured countless hours into preparing for the season. And for a lot of guys, this is a way to get a college education through scholarships. And quite frankly, this is very important for their future. I think the school board should allow football to resume, or at the very least, review the decision, because I do not believe that the decision was made in a transparent manner. I don't think those affected by the decision were involved in making the decision. And I don't think it was handled with the recognition that this is an incredibly impactful and important decision for many student athletes. Thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Our next speaker is Connor Ramming. And Connor, I'm looking for you right now. All right, you should be allowed to unmute now.
Hey, my name's Connor Ramming. I'm a student at Decatur High School and part of the football team. I just would like to say, I mean, not like to say, but I do believe that football is a good, it's a good escape for a lot of the players on our team, and I feel like it is a safe haven in terms of COVID. I think outside of the football field, not many of us practice social distancing or like daily routine symptom checks or temperature checks, and I think it is a good way for us to like maintain the social distancing, and it just provides us with a reason to help fight COVID, I think. And while and I do agree, like it is a good way for I'm sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Thank you, Connor.
Thank you, Connor. Appreciate it. Okay, our next speaker is Michelle Rippon. Let me see here. Michelle, I cannot find you. Hold on just a second, everybody. All right, I cannot find Michelle. So Eston, maybe if you could look and see if you can find her, that'd be great. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is Miles Havard. Miles, I'm looking for you right now. Okay, I also don't see Miles. All right, I see our next speaker is Michael Lloyd. I see two different Lloyds. All right, I'm going to try one and, oh, they just disappeared. Hold on. Okay, I see a Michael, maybe Michael Lloyd. Let's see if we've got the right one.
Yeah.
Michael. All right, is this Michael Lloyd?
Yes, this is Michael Lloyd.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time. So my name is Michael Lloyd. I'm a parent of a rising junior who plays football as well. I just wanted to let you all know that I've watched my son in particular, work very hard in preparation and excitement for the upcoming season. He started working out in March actually, and has been working out every day. Well, pretty much every day. My son, and also a lot of his teammates. So watching these kids and their excitement, and their preparation for the upcoming, challenges, really made me feel really good, because football and sports are microcosms of life, and you have to prepare, prepare immensely for the challenges. So my background is, so I'm a nutritional biochemist and a food scientist. So I spent about 10 years in drug development. And so the things that I learned related to how to understand the body and how the body works is immense. So the main thing that I want to let you guys know is that we would like to propose some preventative lifestyle practices that can minimize the risk of contracting the COVID-19 virus, and that has to do with using mouthwashes on a consistent basis that has salicylic acid in it. These mouthwashes can limit the COVID from getting past your throat in the tonsil area down to your chest, and also if the students and the coaches consume things like orange juice and vitamin A and nutrients that can boost your immune system, that limits the risk of contracting this virus. And I have experience with this because I've actually done it myself. And so if you guys are open, I would like to come in and do a presentation for you guys to show you the molecular interactions and be able to explain these lifestyle changes in detail that can minimize the risk of these students and coaches contracting the COVID-19. So that's pretty much all I have to say. And I hope you can give these kids a chance to compete.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Michael. All right, our next speaker is Robert Bibb. Robert, I'm looking for you right now. There you are. You should be able to unmute, Robert.
All right, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the board tonight. My name is Robert Bibb, the father of a kindergartner and third grader. I'm here to talk about the lack of in-person services planned for our special education students who are unable to engage in virtual learning. My kindergartner has been receiving special education services since his 3rd birthday. Thus far, we've been happy with the teachers, paraprofessionals, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists, the teacher for visually impaired, and the orientation and mobility specialist. Sorry if I've left anyone off, the list is long. While it appears special education students will be among the first to receive services in person, I'm deeply concerned that they will not be receiving in-person therapy and special education programming to start the year. Like my son, many of these children have significant cognitive impairment, visual and auditory impairment, speech delay, and other disabilities which render distance learning impossible. Distance learning is not merely an inconvenience to these students and their families. It is a barrier to receiving an education. No amount of technology or teacher support can ensure the education of these students are met. Effective distance learning for these students is a fantasy. It is my understanding that one primary consideration when determining the safety of in-person instruction is the number of individuals in the classroom setting. For those unfamiliar with special education, you should know the large component is held in small groups or a one-on-one setting. During the last board meeting, members appeared to support learning in small groups in the context of private pods. And CSD is teaming up with DEF to find child care providers for students in need. Classes across elementary grades are being standardized to help parents work together in small pods. CSD sent out communication promoting DEF and their ability to connect families in need with child care providers. Most child care providers I'm aware of house multiple children in a single location, many citing a 1-to-10 teacher-to-student ratio. I'm having a hard time reconciling the promotion of small group learning with the fact that my son and other special education students do not have access to an in-person one-on-one therapy and small group resources that they need to learn. How can the Board of Education and CSD promote small group learning but neglect to provide our special education students with in-person services? You are either endangering families and children and de facto educators, or you are neglecting to provide a suitable learning environments for special education students. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Robert. All right, our next speaker is Sam Mahoney. Sam, I think I found you, so you should be able to unmute now.
Hey, I'm Sam Haney. I'm a student at Decatur High School. I play football. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of the Decatur High School football team. We as a team want the board to follow GHSA and the decisions they make. We have not officially practiced in over a week now. Being away has made us appreciate football even more. We miss our teammates and coaches. We miss the connection and bond with the team. We miss the dedication and the hard work that was put into the sport. We miss seeing the improvement every day. We know as a team we have a lot of potential to do great things this season. We believe we can also play safely under the COVID guidelines. We certainly promise to do our best. Football has not only helped us on the field, but off the field as well. Football helps players academically and keeps us on the right path to success. The future of these athletes are weighing on your decision. Scholarship opportunities are on the line. We want to thank the board for looking out for us. We know you want the best for us, our coaches and teachers, and our classmates. We just ask that you reconsider your decision and let us play football. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam. All right, our next speaker is Isaac. All right, Isaac, you should be able to unmute now.
Hey.
All right, you're live. Go for it, Isaac.
Hey, I'm Isaac Dimmick. I'm a student athlete at Decatur High School, and I play on the Decatur football team. I'd like to pick up back on to what Jerry Boudreau was talking about earlier with scholarships when it comes to football. Football and sports in general are a huge aspect of why a bunch of us students attend school. The sport of football is an escape route, and also helps us get away from what's happening outside of our lives, and pretty much brings everybody into the same background and brotherhood. And the way this actually hurts is, I'm a senior myself. We have 30 of us seniors, many of whom need a scholarship to be able to play at a college or to even be able to attend college. And also, what I'd like to touch on is we would like to have our season suspension revoked, and we would like to have our season continue. Thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Isaac. All right, and we had one more person sign up during that time, Laura Hart. Let's see. I see an L Hart. I'm assuming that's you, Laura. You should be able to unmute now.
Hello, do you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, we do.
It's kind of last minute. Yeah, and this isn't going to be popular, and this is just sort of off the cuff, but I've heard a lot of conversation about, like, how we need to get football and band going again, and I just want to make sure that we're staying focused on the priority of, getting kids back into the classroom and meeting academic needs for our kids. And I'm not sure we have enough resources, if we've got the staff and the faculty kind of split trying to, make things safe to, like, go do football or go do band practice, and then at the same time try and make sure that the classrooms, our teachers, or support staff in the buildings are also, able to, return. So that's one of my issues. And I think, I hear what people are saying. I'm not unsympathetic to the idea that, scholarships, there are some kids that rely on these extracurriculars for scholarships, but, keep in mind that this is an issue that's all across the country. I'm sure colleges have heard about this from many high schools. I don't know if our particular, leadership folks have reached out to colleges to find out how they're going to deal with this, but, we're not unique, I'd say. The idea that, maybe football shouldn't proceed because it's a contact sport, and, there just isn't, sound science to suggest that there's a way to kind of have that really high contact activity. I mean, it'd be one thing if those kids just wanted to go play football and they didn't want to come back in the classroom and interact with other kids and faculty and staff, but I think they want to do that too. So, I just have concerns about that. And I do have a special needs kid. I have a kid who is gifted, so I understand that, there's going to be some sacrifices there as well. So I'm not insensitive to that. Then the other thing I just want to say is, these kids have been out of school since mid-March. They came home, and they've pretty much been sequestered. I mean, they've been out and about a little bit, but for the most part, not so much. And I don't feel like we have enough good information to really know how vulnerable kids are to coronavirus. Like, that's my concern. Like, there's not good data out there because March is when we cease things, and kids came home for the most part. So I just caution people. I know people are bored. I know people need, support for learning and for childcare. And I'm in the same boat too, believe you me. But I want people to not kind of reach out in desperation to get things kick-started too soon. So that's all I have to say. And thank you for letting me come in at the last minute like that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Laura. And then I did see we had two people I couldn't find. I think I see Michelle now. Well, I thought I did. Oh, and now she's gone again. And let me check if Miles is there. All right, I cannot find either of them anymore. I thought I saw Michelle for a second. So unfortunately, we can't find our last two speakers in the list. They may not have been able to stick around. So, so that concludes our public comment.
David, our agenda doesn't provide for either a superintendent, whatever we used to call it, or a statement by the chair or other comment.
Yeah, I noticed that. I removed those inadvertently. So I can give a brief statement if the board would like about that addresses some of the concerns we heard.
Okay.
So I hear you. It is an agonizing decision to say that I felt we had to pull back on what we were trying with our fall activities. Unfortunately, it's proving to be something that more and more folks are having to turn to. Many of you probably saw the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have canceled their fall football seasons. We can see at the school districts where they have opened. I was just reading Cherokee County opened, and now there's, I think it's close to 900 people that are on a 14-day quarantine. And so, unfortunately, from all the information that we have available to us, it's too soon. And so I can share that in my conversations with each of the board members, I think everybody is committed to getting people back as soon as we absolutely can do so safely. But safely is the key. We have to make sure that we can bring people back in an environment where we are not contributing to the problem and causing more sickness than we need to. So we are very much committed to trying to get to what you may recall from our previous presentations, that partial hybrid situation. And when we can start getting into that, then we can start bringing back some activities, because we do recognize how incredibly important that is to the mental health of our kids to be able to get together and actually see other kids and interact with them. We will start, as one of the speakers mentioned, we do want to get our highest needs special education students back in the school, because it is very hard, if not impossible, to deliver some of those services virtually. So it is something we are well aware of, and it is an agonizing decision to not be able to have those things happen. I do think it's the correct decision, unfortunately, at the time. Right after we made our decision, if you've been watching the data in DeKalb County, the cases shot back up again. And so they've been higher the last 3 or 4 days than they were before that. It looked like we were trending down, and suddenly we shot up again. So unfortunately, that's the state that we're in. And it is a very difficult proposition of deciding when we can come back. I do think that we're going to see additional school districts move away from the GHSA guidance. I agree that it would be great if we could just follow that guidance, but I think there are a lot of influences there that aren't necessarily based on what the data is showing us, at least for Metro Atlanta. And so unfortunately, we did make a decision contrary to that guidance, but it would not surprise me if that guidance changes in the coming days as the reality sits in about what is actually happening. I think we will also see some other school districts making decisions similar to this. And unfortunately, we were the first, but I have a feeling there will be others as well. And I know of a couple of school districts that have already announced canceling fall activities, unfortunately. So it doesn't mean that there's absolutely no possibility of fall sports. We may have to figure out a way to do them in the spring, if that's a possibility. So it is not just once it's canceled, it's done and it's never going to happen. Unfortunately, as we saw last spring, there were some things that just didn't happen. And that's just an unfortunate reality we're having to deal with. And it is very traumatic for many of us. And I fully recognize that students are very interested in not only the mental health benefits of those activities, but also what it means in their future and their future interests and activities and scholarships and all of that. I am fairly confident that any reasonable person is going to take into account that all that we've gone through with coronavirus in our world, when looking at students and trying to figure out what they're going to do with scholarships and things next year. I think it would be irresponsible not to take that into account, that some school districts are able to operate and others aren't. And I would hope that that is something that colleges will take into consideration, and we will advocate that when given such opportunities. So we hear you. We feel the same way you do. Most of us have kids at home and are dealing with the same things that all of you are. We've had them home since March 13th. We've been trying to take care of our kids' mental health and trying to survive this whole thing the same way. So it breaks my heart having to cancel the fall activities and put those off. But we are working hard to get back to some kind of in-person activities as soon as we can safely do so. So I just wanted to share that. So thank you for the opportunity.
I'll add in the form of a chair's report, I guess, which is partly kudos and partly responses to the question about football. And I've mentioned this to the board members, and they're probably going to smile and roll their eyes, but I'm going to do it one more time for the benefit of the meeting. So the kudos go to the band. And this is not, so football folks, bear with me. My daughter happens to be in the band, and so I'm very familiar with what's going on there. And, you know, they conducted their band camp. Now that occurred just before the call was made to stop all the extracurriculars, including band. So it's not that they got to do their thing. It's just that the timing worked, that their band camp completed. But I was very concerned about how they would do band camp in a safe way. And I was very impressed with the way that it was done, both, and first a shout out to Mr. Ehrlich, Tyler Ehrlich, our new band teacher, whose approach to the band camp I very much appreciate. I think that we're very lucky to have Mr. Ehrlich on board. But what impressed me most was the idea in the beginning that we're going to have this band camp, even though we're probably not going to do a field show. So marching band, you know, is mostly about the thing you do on the field. We're going to have band camp without practicing a show because it's so important for the kids. It's a social outlet for them, and it gives them a focus, and it gives them companionship, and it gives them a connection. And that's important enough that we're going to do it whether we do a show or not. I appreciate that spirit because I think it's very important. But I also was very, very impressed with the students, and I want to call out it's the two drum majors and another student, Ewan Pritchard. So Miriam Guthrie, Ewan Pritchard, and Mara Jones, who really took it upon themselves to make sure that the band camp was conducted safely. And again, I had a number of conversations with them around this, and so I know what they did, and it's just that I happen to have that insight into the program that I'm able to say this. But, you know, they went and called meetings and took it upon themselves to put together a protocol about exactly what kind of safety practices were going to be followed in terms of practicing in small cohorts, and, you know, horns down, masks up was one of the things. They had a sheet of 10 rules to enforce the distancing. Everybody had to have a thing on the end of the bell of their horn or whatever to make sure that the virus wasn't sprayed. You get the idea. What impressed me is that the students took the initiative to come forward and say that, you know, we can't be lax about this. We have to have this plan in place. And if we put it in place, we can practice safely. I thought that they did a tremendous job, and I thought that those students should be commended for putting that together and making that happen. Whether or not, and then I also know that the band made the decision that they weren't going to practice the show, and instead they were going to have an alternate show where they practice in small groups and whatnot. I thought that's exactly the spirit that we need to bring to this, which is to find a way to make these activities safe. We need to recognize just how incredibly important they are. I thought that the students and the parents who spoke to us just now make an extremely compelling case, and I can assure you that the entire board is sick about it. I think I'm especially sick about it because I just think that these experiences are so important to the development of our kids. not only to their college prospects. I would note that, this is the opportunity for some of these people to shine, right? And so in terms of thinking about scholarships, it's not that the school is just going to say, well, they didn't have that opportunity. These kids have missed the opportunity to make a mark in many ways. I mean, we can't understate what a loss this is. That all said, and I do want to make clear that this was not a board decision. This is the kind of decision that we've delegated to the superintendent, to Dr. Duty. And we've done that for a reason, because there's no way that this board is going to be able to make the call about what's safe and what's not. And also, we brought all of these concerns to Dr. Duty when the call was made. So we were informed of it. It wasn't an approval that we gave, but we were informed of it. And I have to say that as important as I think, and as just extremely compelling as the case that's just been made is, that I also appreciated the way that you approached it, Dr. Duty, in terms of evaluating these risks. And the way that I was able to understand it best is that, yes, it might be possible, but human error is such a factor. We have only so many resources, only so much ability to figure out what's safe. We're not persuaded necessarily that the state guidelines are safe enough. And basically, it's too much for us to do. We can't do it with the assurance that we're putting the first thing first, which is the safety, not only of the kids, but of the families that they might infect if they get the virus in the entire community. I think it was an extremely hard decision. I do want to assure people that an awful lot of thought went into it. It was not made casually, but it was based on what I thought was an appropriate consideration of a balancing of the risks on all sides. That said, I do hope that we can lean into getting kids back into these activities. I mean, lean in. We need to be finding ways to get people back doing the things that they need to be doing. So, going forward, that's what I think the entire board wants to see, and I think that's what Dr. Duty wants to see. For now, I understood the decision and appreciated the way that it was made. So let's call that a chair's report, but if other board members would like to weigh in. Okay, well, thank you for bearing with me. Let's move on to the consent items. I have one question about one of the consent items, which I guess I'd suggest we take the milk item and kick it to discussion just so that I can answer my question.
Yep, let's do that.
So then do we have a motion to, well, the items are the personnel report, school nutrition, and financial reports. Do we have a motion to approve those three consent items?
I move that we approve the three consent items.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. So that motion carries. The items for action, information, or discussion. My only question about the milk procurement, and maybe we take that up first, it's just that we're procuring milk at a time when no one's drinking it. I thought I'd ask how this works.
Actually, they are, because we're starting up our food service. You'll actually hear a little bit about that in a little bit. So we will be delivering a lot of milk out to students as we start up our food service. So that's what that's about.
Okay, that's fine. So should we go ahead and approve that item too? Do we have a motion to approve that consent item number 4?
Motion to approve.
Go ahead, Heather.
Oh, sorry, Tasha.
Okay.
You can go ahead, that's fine.
Motion to approve consent item number 4.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that motion carries as well.
Excellent.
That brings us to the discussion of the academic calendar.
Yes, so that's an action item. So you may recall we had a rather lengthy process last year for academic calendars. And at the time, we planned out the next about 25 years worth of calendars using the same kind of algorithm of what we decided worked for us at the time. So the 2022-23 academic calendar you've actually seen before. It has not changed from what we talked about when we looked at that giant chart of all the different calendars. It follows all the same processes that we have done in the past. And so Our board policy has that we approve at least a year in advance, and so we try to kind of err on the side of even further advance than that. So we've approved already the 21-22 calendar, so I'm bringing you the 22-23 calendar. If at some point something changes and we need to make a change, we can do that through an action of the board, but this way the calendar gets set and people can plan accordingly to use that. So.
David, I have not looked at our policy, but I think it has some public notice built into it. Have we provided?
So yes, so the policy actually says, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was the public has an opportunity to provide input. And so I did link to all that input. We really did that in the last session when we did the coming up with the algorithms of how to create our calendars. And so links to all of those survey results are in the board item itself, along with the board item that we brought last year around this time.
Was that a full year ago that we put those posters all over the wall?
It was. So we would just, unless there's more questions, we just need a vote on that.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to approve the 2022-23 academic calendar.
In the second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. I wanted to ask a question, which I thought that we would have a discussion, but I didn't realize that this calendar discussion was about next year's calendar. We had a comment that was made that I thought made a compelling case about changing the teacher workday to be election day. I don't want to, stir anything up, but I wanted to ask a question about your thoughts on that, because I thought that it made sense.
Yeah, that was an extensive topic when we did the survey. And by far the preference was that they would rather have the day off, the day after Halloween as the day that would be a work day rather than election day. You may recall that we no longer have our schools as polling places. We were able to get those moved to other locations. So it used to be we had a very big security concern, and that was one of the reasons that the day occurred on election day. And then one of the things, students who want to vote and are eligible to vote can get an excused absence to go vote. So that's not an issue. And most staff members vote before they come to work, or they do an absentee ballot or things like that. So that was very much a preference, largely driven by teachers, because they know what it's like trying to teach the kids the day after Halloween and how rough that can be. And so was the decision that was made at the time to stick with that. So sometimes it literally falls the day after Halloween, but the way our wording is, it's the first weekday after Halloween. So sometimes Halloween's on a Saturday, so it'll be a Monday that they have the work day. But some days Halloween is on like a Tuesday, so it's Wednesday that they'd have the work day.
Well, thank you for addressing that. I thought the commenter made a compelling comment, but that's a compelling answer.
Yep.
The next on the agenda is the board update. I think that's you, right?
Yes, it is. So I'm going to walk you through, instead of doing a written board update, this time we're going to do a visual board update, because so much of what has happened since the last board meeting has been documented in various communications to the community. So I'm going to walk you through a couple things. Feel free to stop me if you have questions. We've got our cabinet members online here. If it's something that I'm not able to answer, that they can jump in and assist with. So I'm going to do kind of a high level overview, but I do think it's helpful both for the board and for the community who may not be aware of all the details of what's out there. So it looks to me like you can see my screen, so stop me if you can't, but basically it starts all at csdecatur.net/opening2020. So that is a website we set up where we put everything about opening in 2020 and transitioning to virtual, transitioning back to in-person, et cetera. Anything about the school year is going there as we have the information available. So first off, this is where we have the email address, opening2020@csdecatur.net, where people can share their thoughts if they have ideas. For instance, we heard some great ideas from from both parents and football players tonight. That would be a perfect spot to send ideas like that to make sure that they get documented and captured. So that is a great resource that has been very helpful. People have been using it, and it gives us a really good idea of what questions people have that we need to be addressing. We also get some great ideas from there of how to attack various issues and problems and challenges and whatnot. So there's a lot of information on here. I'm going to give you kind of a high level overview, but sometimes we have announcements that we put up here, like the virtual learning readiness form. We really wanted that due August 5th. We saw that there was a little challenge for some people getting it done, so we've extended that through tomorrow. But this is a form that we've asked people to complete so we know if their family is ready for virtual learning. Do we need to get them a Chromebook? Are they going to be participating in our school lunch program, etc.? We have information on our virtual town hall meetings. These have been extremely well attended. I'll point out that we only had like 60 people on this meeting, but at the town halls, we've had over 700 at several of the town halls. So that's pretty awesome that people are attending those. And again, we're getting some questions that they're submitting. You can see there's a link right here for a form that you can fill out. And so we use that form to inform what we talked about at the town halls. So we looked for themes and patterns and what people were asking about, and we designed the town hall around that. So we've already had quite a few. You can see we had a pre-K2 town hall, we had a 3rd through 5th grade town hall, a Renfro town hall, a high school town hall, and then just last night we had a special programs and supports town hall and a technology town hall. So these have gone really well. We've posted the videos here because we know not everybody can watch those things live, so they can go back and see information. We're also working on writing some summaries of these, so if you don't have time to actually watch it, you could click and get a little summary of what was discussed at the town hall. And then we have one more, which I anticipate based on the questions I've seen is going to be a pretty popular one, which is tomorrow at 5 p.m. We encourage people to go, where we're going to talk through what Wellness Wednesday is. So I'm not going to get into Wellness Wednesday much tonight because that's the spot to find out about it. Lily Huddleston and her team have been working so incredibly hard to develop a really robust social emotional learning approach to students, because we know that that is so important, as we talked about a little bit already tonight. So I really encourage people to tune into that town hall, and this is where you can find the link for that. And if you're not able to attend from 5 to 6, that's okay. Come back, and once we have the video, we will post it, a link to it right there. So that's some of the information that we update that's a little bit more in the moment, things that people want to know. Some people are curious, like, who's working on all this stuff? And so we have these teams. So you can see who are these different teams that are working. We have a digital learning team, a school health team, health and science advisory committee, students with special needs, an operations team, and a staff support team. So if you're curious about what we're looking at, we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on. So there's some information about those. We do have a Q&A section, which we update periodically. And so these are questions like, will face coverings be required? That's a question we get a lot. Will athletics and extracurriculars take place? What happens if there's a positive test? Will meet and greet happen? Things like that. So these are questions that we tend to see as themes that we keep getting people asking questions, especially to that opening 2020 email address. And so we update this periodically to include the answers to those questions. And a lot of these also came out of the town hall meetings as well. Resources are a really big deal. This is something that a lot of people are interested in. Where is some of the information that we can be looking at that you're using or that might be helpful? So we've tried to put some links over here from like the CDC, the Department of Ed, Department of Public Health, et cetera, on just some of those resources that people may be interested in. Some people just want to see, they just really want to know how are things going? What are things looking like? And I'll go to this one as an example, because this is a dashboard we look at every single day. And this is where we can go, and we can go to DeKalb County, and we can see what are the current cases in DeKalb County. And there you can see that uptick that I was talking about in my comments not too long ago. So those are some examples of some of the resources that we think folks may find helpful. And then one of the big things is our documents. And so we have done our best to really help families through this process. We had a lot of things in the spring of questions and things that people wanted to know and wanted some help with. So we put together these table of contents, or these handbooks, I'm sorry, And we kind of disaggregated them a little bit by areas where there were significant differences. So for instance, this is the pre-K 5 handbook. So if you have a kid in pre-K through 5, you can come here. You can understand the principles we've used in developing there's some tips and definitions. What's the daily schedule look like? And you can go through and read through what it is you're looking for. If I want to see what the K2 schedule is going to look like, I can click on there and I can get a copy of a schedule, for instance. So the idea of the handbook is to be kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of the key information that parents may want and may answer some of the questions that they're interested in. There's a similar handbook for 612. We've got some information on Wellness Wednesday posted here. We've got some key dates information, like what's happening when. Some of this has already happened. We've got our virtual learning overview, and then we also put some things like when we did that big presentation at the July meeting, we put some links to those things there. We also have some of the links to the actual schedules so that if people aren't sure what's happening on a given day, they can go. I have a Renfro student, I can click there and I can see the overall schedule of what things are going to look like for my child once we start up on August 17th. And then finally, we have a big section with communications where we post, like every time we post an email to the community, you can come here also and see what that is. So if you just can't remember, a lot of us have inboxes that are just overwhelming. If you don't want to have to go searching for those emails as we send them, you can come right here and see. These are all of our big communications about COVID-related things. So that's one of the very helpful areas. Another one we have set up is virtual.csdecatur.net. And this is tools and strategies to support digital learning, Decatur virtual teaching and learning. And so here you can see like what are some of the tools that are available, what does PBIS look like in this kind of environment? And so you can go in and say, okay, here are some tools. All right, here's Classroom, Meet, Blackboard Messenger. So this may be helpful for some families to know what tools are out there and available, may be helpful for teachers to get some ideas of these are some of the tools that we're using as we go through. We have training videos here. We have little tips about how to set things up and how to use some of these tools. So there's just a whole bunch of resources here as well, which the teams have been putting together. So if you're interested in that social emotional engagement and you want to get a feel for, we have what we call SEEKs. You can look and see kind of where we are with our curriculum. Some of this you'll see on the our Wellness Wednesday information as well. So that's another one of the resources that we have available that folks may be interested in. Another place that I just want to show you real quickly is, because there was a question that came up earlier about food service and why we would need to be ordering milk. If I go to our school nutrition page, so you can see that we are taking pre-orders right now for food service. And so we are going to do our best to run a full food service program. And so we have pre-orders. People can fill out this Google form right here, and it's open until Thursday at 3 p.m. And you can fill out that form and it'll ask you things like who are your children? Do you want breakfast or lunch? Do you have any special dietary needs, etc.? And then nutrition is working with our student transportation department to figure out a way to bring those meals to the closest bus stop so that folks, if they would rather not go to the high school and pick up their meals, they could come to the closest bus stop and pick up their meal right at a bus stop nearby. So they're working out all those logistics right now. And then they'll do like we did at the end of the season last spring, which is delivering multiple meals, like multiple days of meals at a time. So this won't be every day. You may come on a Monday and pick up 2 days worth of meals. So you might have 4 meals, breakfast, lunch, and things like that. So there's a lot of information here on the nutrition page about how to get your meals pre-ordered, how to pay for your meals. It's still the same process as always. If you've ever done anything with paying for meals before you log into your Infinite Campus parent portal. You deposit your money. And of course, if you have any questions, here's a great example right here. They've got an email address set up and they have a phone number, and they're available to answer any questions that parents may have about any of this. So that's a big deal with our meal service. So that's really exciting that they're able to do that. We have a new food service director, and she's just done a great job putting all of this together. So that's pretty exciting, and we're hoping to feed as many kids as we can, because we know that our school nutrition department puts together some extremely healthy meals for our students. And then finally, I'm just going to share one bit of neat kind of fun news, and that is our solar panel installation at Talley is complete. And so when we have things like this, you can go to that news section and you can see what's happening with things like this. You may recall we have solar panels at Renfro, and it's been great. And I can actually pull up the live dashboard. Anybody can do this, and you can look at how are the solar panels doing at Renfro Middle School. Takes just a second to load here. Here comes the dashboard, and I can look at, like, over the last week, what has the solar panel looked like at Renfro. And this is something we actually use with our students at Renfro. And we will also use this with students at Talley to help them understand that their school is helping be powered by solar. So there's an example of the kilowatt hours that are being produced on any given day in August, for example. So this is a really cool tool that our science folks can use with students. Not to mention the fact that it's just great for our environment to be able to start moving towards some solar energy at least 2 of our schools where it was feasible to do that. And you may recall we had some grants that helped with that as well. So that's the gist of our updates. There's a lot of information that's coming out from other schools, and each school site has similar links and things that you can go for your specific school to see what's being communicated specific to that school. So that is our update for tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions, board members?
Not so much a question, but just wanted to emphasize what Dr. Duty said about the school lunches and make it clear that they're for all the students, not just free and reduced lunch students. So any student that would like to purchase a school lunch may do so, and we encourage you to do so. You know, take one less thing, you know, off your to-do list. Make sure your kids get healthy food. The reason is because our nutrition department is a profit center, and so we are continuing to pay our employees, and so we also need, like, they want to do something constructive and helpful and beneficial and stay busy, and the more lunches that we are able to provide and sell to students, the more that enables them to do that, and for us to cover the cost to do that. So please try it.
Thank you for pointing that out, Heather.
Yeah, and share that with your friends. You know, spread the news, share it on Facebook, share it in your neighborhood conversations, and let people know. So.
Well, and I really appreciate you saying that, because that is an important point to get across, that it is for everybody, and we really hope you'll take advantage of it. And if you haven't gone to the school nutrition Facebook page, you really should, because they post pictures of the food. And I can tell you, it does not look like the food that I prepare in our house. It is fantastic. It is so balanced and healthy, and it just is really great. So I hope people will take advantage of that. We're trying to make it as easy as possible, and do please participate in that. Other comments or questions?
And I would encourage even family dinner meals. You could definitely take care of that for my house if you wanted to.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. That was a great presentation, Dr. Duty.
I don't have a question, but that was a great presentation, and it reflects a lot of hard work. And so, you know, both in terms of the programming, and I'm always impressed with the level of thought and attention that you and your team put into figuring these things out and covering all those bases. I'm also impressed at the you know, once again, the way that you're communicating it, I think is good. I know that the virtual town halls, you know, that's good content. You know, I was very impressed. They're paced well, they're informative. I'm glad that the videos are available. So good job. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, and it's funny, I was talking to another administrator in our district today, and we were sharing how it's so interesting in a district the size of ours, where, you know, we were commenting on it, Gwinnett, they have an entire team of people who are doing X, Y, or Z. And here, you may only be able to devote a couple hours to that thing, and you have to have the same byproducts of your work that entire team is having. So it's been very interesting. But as I say every time, I apologize, it's like a broken record, but I've got the best people in the world working with me, and this would not happen without them. And they're doing such a tremendous job throughout the district. It's just really awesome. And what we're seeing right now is this is a lot of that operational side of things that often happens behind the scenes, right? I was able to attend the technology meeting today with the technology staff, for instance, and just share with them how pleased I am with how well they're doing. And they're just doing amazing things that no one has ever had to do before, and they're figuring it out, and they're doing it with a smile on their face, and are being super productive while they're doing it. And so there's just stories like that throughout the district, and it's just, I couldn't have a better team to work with. It's really awesome.
Thank you for
Any other
that.
comments or questions? Okay.
So now we move on to the discussion of the Senior Homestead Exemption Committee, and I think we'll ask James to lead that.
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Had a great meeting. I want to thank the members of the committee for putting together a lot of data and sort of discuss stuff. We have another meeting coming up on, in fact, an email just came out about it. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it's the 20th, where Hans Utz has been putting together the presentation that he wants to make for the board in September about their recommendations, about the different options to do, and then also discuss on the 20th their recommendations for public involvement after they've made the recommendations and how to sort of see it through. And so a lot of board members have been really active. That one took a couple of hours. The topics that were discussed were 65 versus 70 as a starting point for the exemption, the impact that that would make both on the overall exemption given, as well as, you know, what is the actual retirement age. There was a discussion about sort of a history lesson of the data about what we proposed, we being the board, but obviously, you know, not many of us were around then, proposed, and then how it came into effect. And then we ended up with kind of a conversation about the best way to implement it, including board sharing their thoughts on an income cap versus a household pricing cap. And one of the things that will be in the slide is how that impacts different sections of Decatur and different amounts of people. So very productive meeting. They keep ramping up, and they said they'll be able to hit the deadline of a September recommendation.
Great. That's really awesome. And I'll also share, I am going to be meeting with Hans coming up, and I assume we'll probably be going through the report, and maybe I'll be able to answer some other questions and stuff. So that will be happening in the coming days.
To have a clarification, the public process that you all are going to propose, is that going to precede? This is with the idea that we have a fully vetted and publicly involved recommendation by the September meeting. Is that correct?
So there was a little bit of discussion about that, because it does, the original charge says that they will come back with us with ideas on how to get the public involved. And I told them that that charge was written in February, when it was a very, very different times. And so while the meetings have all been public, they have not been attended to the degree that the members of the committee or any of us would like to see. And so I asked them at a minimum, when they give the presentation to us, to come up with ideas to make sure that their ideas are that we're considering are presented to the board, even if that had to happen post-September. So it will be vetted by the public in that the meetings have been open to the public, but they have not been attended or published to the degree that we would like. So I think the board is going to ask, the committee is going to ask for maybe one or two sort of public hearings or presentations about these are our ideas that we gave to the board sometime in September.
Okay. we'll have to work that out, but obviously we're going to have, there's a lot of interest in this. And so we're going to need to make sure to provide those broad public opportunities. We can figure that out.
Totally agreed.
And we're able to get the data that we needed from TSU. How did that work out?
As far as I know, that might be part of what Hans wants to talk about. I'm not positive, but as far as I know, we've been able to gather the data that's been requested. But there are times there's data we want that there's just no way to get. That has come up at least one of the meetings I attended. So,
okay.
I believe Paula and Hans have gone in particular, and obviously some other members of the committee may have done some more behind the scenes, but they've gone through the effort of working through the city commission's office or David's office or the new finance director and backfilling where Georgia State was unavailable, and recreating stuff that's been really impressive.
Okay. I'm really excited to see their work. I know they put a tremendous amount of effort into it.
Well, thank you very much for spearheading that for us, James.
Of course.
So are there other questions? It doesn't look like it. Okay. Next item on the agenda, which I think is actually the last item on the agenda, is to discuss topics for the board newsletter. This doesn't need to be a long discussion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've got some notes that I can share. So for everybody's benefit, Lewis and Courtney got together and talked a little bit about the idea that came up at a previous meeting of a board newsletter of some sort that could be shared with the public, but also especially with like state legislators and city commissioners and things like that. And so some of the suggestions that came out of that discussion was to have a standing item like this on the board agenda. So we have an opportunity each month to talk about what should go into the newsletter. Excuse me, assigning somebody to each area who might have the most information or have some time to write up a little blurb about it, and getting that kind of the goal being we have our meeting, and then by the next Tuesday we have a draft, and then by the next Tuesday we have it out. And so some of the things that you guys talked about and we can talk more about is like it's got to be super brief, because this is going to folks that don't have a whole lot of time, and we need to make it as efficient as possible. And maybe then have links to other things, make sure that we are sharing positive news, equity updates, things like the Homestead exemption, things like what we're working on with the DeKalb County schools, what are our legislative positions, et cetera. So that was some of the discussion. Lewis, you may have more to add to that, or but if that's the kind of direction we want to go, this would be great. We could start, I think we could get started right away. We've probably got some good ideas that we could put into a newsletter and give it a shot and see how it goes.
I think that's right. The topics that come to mind, I think you just named them. I'd start with the one that's going to be on everybody's mind is reopening COVID. Seems like we should have a very brief, broad, high-level discussion of what we're doing, probably emphasizing areas in which the city schools are not following steps. So if we're doing anything different from what Metro is doing, I think that'll be particularly of interest. I think the next steps are the current steps toward the broad equity initiative. A discussion of the senior exemption so that folks know what James and his committee are doing and what's coming down and what the schedule looks like. It occurred to me, and one reason that I'm actually talking instead of just nodding, that yes, that's a good list, is that I should have given a report, because at the last meeting we mentioned that we were going to request that the city, this goes to the item of our discussions with the DeKalb County School Board. And at the last meeting, we previewed that we would be asking the city commission to enter a one-year moratorium on annexations into the city, specifically to give us time to make a deal with DeKalb County that we believe we've put an offer on the table that keeps DeKalb County whole, that also keeps Decatur whole, and that's a very good deal all around. but we need a little bit of time to work that out. The update is that the city very graciously granted our petition. And so there is, in fact, a one-year moratorium in place. And we thank the city commissioners for doing that for us, because it's important and it gives us the space to work. So the next step is that we need to get to work with the DeKalb County School Board and convince them to accept an offer that I think they should want to accept, because I think it's good for all of us. And we've looked at the legal issues and are very confident that we have a solution if we can only get to work and work it out. So hopefully at the next newsletter, we can report that we've actually made good progress. But for now, that is the update.
Awesome. So what I heard is Homestead exemption, the DeKalb County Schools negotiation, a COVID update, and information on equity initiatives. That's probably sufficient for a first newsletter, I would think.
I think so.
I just made some notes here that maybe James could work on the Homestead exemption one. Maybe Lewis could work on the DeKalb County Schools one. And I'm happy to work on the COVID and equity initiatives, since those are more administrative type things. And what I'm thinking is I could start a Google Doc with those in those, and then it just gives us a spot to work and put information. And then once we feel like we've each done a piece, we can share it out with the whole board to take a look before we finalize it. Does that sound like a decent way of approaching it?
That sounds great.
Awesome. All right. We will get to work on that and share out that document and tag you guys in it so you know where to find it. And then we'll get the inaugural one of these things out the door.
Thank you.
Cool.
What you needed was just one more thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, you know, I was really hoping that there would be some more for me to do.
I thought so. That's all we've got left is future dates.
Future dates, exactly. School is starting August 17th. Hopefully that's obvious to everybody. Just a quick note, since Labor Day is coming up on September 7th, and we will put this out in a lot of communications, but we are going to cancel Wellness Wednesday that week so that we don't lose the cycle of the two-day cycle. So some folks asked that question, and we've shared that. I think we might have even shared it in one of the town halls, but just to be aware, that week we will do the Monday schedule on Tuesday and the Tuesday schedule on Wednesday, and then stick with Thursday and Friday as normal. But other than that, we'll be doing that normal. And then our next meeting, it looks like, is September 8th.
Well, that's all we've got. So I think this meeting is adjourned unless there's any other business. Well, thanks all who joined us, and have a good night, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.